Hi, I'd like to walk you through the process of setting up a Windows desktop in the cloud using AWS Workspaces. After that, I'd like to show you how to customize it so that it can be duplicated and used for an entire team of people that all share the same basic desktop setup. So let's get started. All right, the first thing we need to do is log into our AWS console, and then we will type in Workspaces. Now, the first time you come here, you're going to see a wizard that you can go through, but I've already gone through that once and I deleted everything. We don't really want to do it that way anyway, because when you come back and do it a second time, you don't get to use the wizard. So let's just see how you would normally do this. So how you would normally do this is you would click Launch Workspaces. And notice there's no directory here. So one of the things about Workspaces is that it's tied to a directory service. Typically, we're going to be using a form of Active Directory that is also stored in AWS. So let us create a new directory. And this directory is going to hold the users that have access to all of the desktops in our organization. Simple AD, Simple Active Directory, is going to be a lightweight version of a directory and will cost us less than other alternatives, so we'll do that. And I'm going to select small, and I'm going to call my company Paradise Donut Company. And this is going to be important because we need another service that's going to tie into this, that's going to be kind of like box.com or Dropbox, which is going to allow us to save our documents in the cloud for each desktop that we're running. And so by having a nice little name here, it will later become part of a URL like the one you see right above there. And I'm going to call mine my DNS name, my local network name. I'm going to call it corp.paradise.local. So just come up with some company name .local, and that will be fine. And then you need to enter in some type of password. Okay. And it's going to ask you where you want to put your, well, this is setting up the networking where your assets are going to be stored, and it'll put it in two different subnetworks. And I'll just go with the defaults here today, and off we go. So it looks like that would cost me $36 a month at present. Okay, so this is going to take a little while before it's actually provisioned, and so I will come back in just a minutes. And after I hit refresh, it said status active. It still doesn't say registered. What registered means is that the directory service, the database of users, is not tied to the Workspaces desktop environment, and so we need to register it so that the two are going to be connected. And one of the things that asked me as part of this process is, do we want to enable integration with WorkDocs, which is a Box or Dropbox.com type of service for file sharing in your organization. So let us go ahead and say, yes, we will integrate that. So at a high level, we could be thinking right now that we're doing WorkDocs as well as Active Directory as well as Workspaces, which is what's going to be running our Windows desktops. And so it says it's registering, but that's really a nearly instantaneous process. All right, so now let us go over to Workspaces and start to set something up. So I go over to Workspaces, and they call it Workspaces, but a better name for this might be a virtual desktop in the cloud. So I'm going to click on Launch Workspaces. Now I have a directory ready to go. Next step, this is the page where I can create some users, or I can add new users, and they're all going to get dumped into that directory service that was just created. If I click Show All Users, it shows that there are some pre-built users that are already in there. I'm going to call my user, I'll call it Test User, because I'm just going to use this to set things up right now. And I'll use my own name. And I'll say create a user. And if I go down to the bottom, This is the user that is selected to be used with the workspace that I'm building right now. If I had already created this user, they would show up here, and I could just select them and say add selected, and they would show up down here. Okay, next step. Now it's asking me which bundle do I want to use, or which hardware do I want associated with the, well, in this case, the bundle is a combination of the operating system and software on it, as well as the hardware. We talk about images when we're just talking about the operating system and the software installed with it. So the default there is a Linux machine, but I'm going to go down and select Windows 10 in a free tier eligibility tier. And so I'll go standard with Windows 10. If I was doing an accountant or something like that, I would probably add in Microsoft Office. And so I'm selecting 2 virtual CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM, 80 for the operating system hard drive, and 50 for the user to use. And so it fills in that information down there. And if I go down far enough, I go next step. I'm going to take the defaults here, which is going to stop billing me and stop the service when I log out. And I'm not going to add any tags this time, so I'll just take the defaults. And then it gives me another chance to review what I've asked for. There's quite a few of these. Do you really want to do it? Type questions. Now it says this is going to take up to 20 minutes to become available. So I'm going to stop, and sometime in the next 15 to 20 minutes, the status is going to change from pending to available of some other similar name written in green. 15 minutes, and if I hit reload here, it now says status available. And I can't use my desktop, even though it's there right now, until I have a desktop client to access it with. And I also need to set up a username and a password. So when the workspace is done being created, then it will send you an email. And this is what the email looks like. And one of the first things it says is, well, the first thing in here, it says click on this URL. And so when I click on that URL, it asks me to set a username and password. And after I have set a username and a password, it takes me to another page where it asks me to download a client for workspaces that I can use to access my workspace. And I've already installed this, so on your end, you might have to do this for the first time. But I'm going to open it right now, Workspaces. And because I've done this before, it wants me to enter in the registration code, which is in my email. And so I'm going to go back to that email. And this is likely an identifier associated with which company or Active Directory account I'm using. So everybody that uses this Active Directory account will all have the same ID there. So I use that. And then my user is test user. And I'm now logging in. And here it is. So it only took a couple seconds to log in. I can resize it, and it'll redo the orientation on the desktop. All right, so I'll stop there just in case an error occurs in my next segment of the video, and then I'll continue on. Okay, so let's imagine that I'm going to be using this as a template for creating a lot of other desktops, and people are going to all have a similar role. Let's just, now granted I already have an application installed here that's a of type web browser, but if I wanted to install another thing, I could do, I could open up Firefox and go over and find, waiting for it to open. Let's just say we go download Chrome. And after a few moments, we should find that Chrome is installed. On your marks. Waiting, waiting, waiting. And we're just about done. Okay. Done now. Okay, so that's downloaded and installed and running. If I close the things that are there, I should now see that there is an icon on the desktop related to a piece of software that's installed. So imagine now that I've installed a whole bunch of different things on here and they can all be accessed through the Start menu. That means that I'm ready to go in terms of creating an image of this. Well, almost. One thing I should do before I create an image is run a program called Image Checker, and this is how you do it. You go to the Start menu and type CMD to get to the command prompt, and then right now we're by default on the secondary drive, the D drive, the user drive. The program that we're going to run is on the C drive, so I'd go C drive /, and I'm going to go into program files, so I'll hit tab and it fills out the rest of that, /Amazon / and then Image Checker, and I'll hit tab again just to kind of fill that all out. So I'll hit return, and I'm going to say yes, I will allow it to make changes. And in a second, a little desktop program will pop up. All right, I'm going to hit run. And I haven't done anything too crazy to this desktop. So it says it's successful, meaning this desktop system is in a state that it can be imaged and cloned. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to close this window as well, which is going to stop my desktop. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to go back to Workspaces. So, and I'm just going to refresh this. All right, so now I have this particular desktop sitting in the cloud and it's ready to be turned into an image from which, an image that I can clone and use for other users. And in the real world, we would probably put a lot more software on there. But I'm going to click on this checkbox and do action. And well, watch what happens if I go create image. One of the things it's going to say here is make sure you reboot your workspace before you create an image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go actions and then reboot workspaces. And this is going to ensure that my image is in a state, or my desktop is in a state that it's ready to be imaged with all the latest updates. So initially when I do this, it doesn't say anything other than what's at the top saying, hey, it's going to be 5 minutes. But if I do this for about 20 seconds and eventually the status changes to rebooting, and then it'll stay in that rebooting status for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to stop and come back in 5 minutes. All right, it's been about 5 minutes, so let's check. Yes, it's ready to go again after the reboot. Okay, now we're ready to click on this box right here and say Actions, Create Image. All right, and I'm going to make an image that is going to be, I'm going to pretend like this is for project managers working in my organization. So I'll say project man image, and I'll say project manager desktop software. And I'll say create image. All right, and up at the top it says workspace image is being created. And the important part is right here. It may take up to 45 minutes for this image to be available. And it says you can view the status of your image creation right here. Really, as I've been going through this, the 4 different areas that we're working with are over here. There's the directories where you create an active directory that users are stored in that access the desktops. There's the workspaces, which is where we launch new desktops. And then the 4th one here is images, which is where we'll go if I click right there. And so it says validating, but it's going to be validating for about 45 minutes. And that's why I'm creating this video, so that I can go off and do something else, and then I'll come back in 45 minutes to finish things up. After about 45 minutes, the status changes to available. And then we have one more step before we're able to create a new desktop based on this existing image. Right now, if I were to go over to bundles, there's nothing there. And that's where we have to create something in order to be able to launch our image. So what I do is I click on there and I say actions, create bundle. And bundle is just a combination of the image that we've created in terms of the operating system and the software, and then with the addition, when we put it into the bundle, of the hardware specs of the desktop that we want to run. So I will call this the project manager. Guess I made a project manager bundle, and I'll just call it the project manager desktop. And here's what makes it unique. Now at the top we already have the image selected, but right here, here's where we select the specs for the hardware we want that's going to be running this desktop. And then I'm going to match what I was using in the previous image, which is a user volume size of 50 gigs. The C drive is going to be left at 80, which is for the operating system primarily. So I say create bundle, and it's, if I go over to bundles, it is instantly available. And so now if I click on this and I say launch workspaces, I'm going to be able to first select the directory, and then let's just say I want to create a real user that's going to be using this now. So I'll call this Proj Manager 1, so Project Manager 1. And I'll make it me again. And I'm going to send some information over to my email address. You see at the bottom that this is now the user in the Active Directory that is going to be used and associated with this workspace or virtual desktop. I click Next, and because of the way I launched this, it's pre-selected this particular bundle, which is really just one of the other bundles, but with the addition of the updates to the operating system that we made. And with that, I'm going to accept most of the defaults here. And I'll leave those defaults the same as well. And then I'll say launch workspaces. All right, now it says it's pending, and it's going to take up to 20 minutes for it to be ready. Okay, it's been 20 minutes. Let's refresh. Okay, it says it's available. And because it says it's available, I should be able to go over to my inbox where I got a new message. And again, I'll click on the first link to go over and set a password for my new user. All right, that username has been entered, and now I need to open up Workspaces again. And be honest. I've already forgotten my new username. So let's go back and check what I did. The username was Projman1. Okay. And when it gives me this blank screen, I find it's best just to close it and reopen it again. I don't know why it does that sometimes. So let me try that again. All right, looking better this time. And when this does open, what I'm hoping to see is that my image matches, or this desktop matches what my image was, meaning that it has the Chrome icon installed on the desktop. And that means it isn't a copy of my base image. And it does have that, that icon there. So we're good to go. So in theory, what I could do is I could go back to here, and I could create lots and lots of workspaces that are all based on this bundle that I've created. So if I had 20 project managers, I could enforce a particular operating system and set of programs for my project managers. Okay, now this is great and fine and dandy that it's running. Now I need to do some cleanup work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Workspaces, and I'm going to stop this. And actually, I'm going to clean up all the resources that I've created as part of this so that I don't get billed for anything. So let me show you how to do that as well. So first I'm going to say stop, and it's going to take a few minutes for that to take place. And so I'll come back when that is done. It took a few minutes. Now that it has stopped, I'm going to try to delete both of these, because I'm not going to be using them anymore. Okay, it says this may take up to 5 minutes to complete. So I'm going to, let's see what else I can delete while I'm waiting for this to happen. So I refreshed it and it says it's terminating. Let's go over to this bundle and see if I can get rid of that. So I'll click on there and I'll say delete bundle. And it says it has an associated workspace. So I can't delete this resource or the image that's going to be underneath it until the workspace has finished terminating. So I'm going to wait. Well, let's see. That happened fast enough. What if I wait about 10 seconds? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's gone. All right, so now let's go over to bundles, and we'll kind of reverse the order in which I created that workspace. I'm going to say delete the bundle. All right, and now I'm going to go over to images, and I want to say delete this image. Okay, but something I still have running is Active Directory, or Simple Active Directory in this case. Right now it says it's registered with Workspaces. Let's go ahead and select it, and I'm going to deregister it so that directory is not going to be working with current, and it says it did it, but got to hit refresh to see that. So now it's not, the directory is not connected with Workspaces anymore, and then it's probably going to fail when I do this because there's another program in addition to Workspaces which was tied into this that we didn't use, and that is WorkDocs, so that Dropbox type service. So if I had wanted to use that when I was looking at any of the desktops, there was an icon there to install it, and all I had to do was enter in my Active Directory username and password that I had set up, and then it would have been installed on that machine. So anyway, if I hit delete right now, it's going to say, hey, you can't do that because the directory is still tied to something else, and that that something else is workspace workdocs. So let me go to workdocs, and if I click on there and say actions, delete workdocs site, and I want to also delete the user directory. So that points back to the Active Directory service. So sometimes we can get a 2-for-1 when we do it this way. So that one says it's gone. So let's go back here, and I'll go to something that was recently used, Workspaces. And I go over to Directories, and it says it's in the process of deleting. So this costs me, I can't remember what it is, $26, $28, $32 a month, whatever it would be to be running simple Active Directory. I won't be charged for that as soon as this is finished deleting. And with that, we're finally done. We've cleaned up all of our resources that we've created.